This is the Flipping Junkie Podcast, episode 61. Welcome to the Flipping Junkie Podcast. My name is Danny Johnson, former software developer turned house flipper, flipping hundreds of houses. Each week we bring you interviews, strategies, stories, and motivation to help you get started flipping houses and on your way to becoming your own boss and achieving financial freedom. Thanks for spending time with me today. Now let's get to it. Hello everybody, welcome back to the Flipping Junkie Podcast. Today I've got a great show for you. We've got John Martinez from Midwest Revenue Group. He's a sales development expert, highly sought after consultant, brings humor, insight, and real world advice to his audiences. His practical, street smart approach to selling has helped hundreds of investors, sales organizations, call centers, business owners, and independent professionals increase their revenue with more control, greater confidence, and less effort. And bringing him on the show today because he's going to be sharing with us how to negotiate with sellers like a pro. So this is huge here because this gets into talking with sellers and being able to negotiate so that that you get the price that you need to get and the seller feels good about the whole process. So this is awesome. John is actually in a mastermind with me, and his sales training has been tremendous help for a lot of people in the group, including ourselves, for training our acquisitions people. And if you're doing acquisitions yourself, it's very helpful to have these tactics. Knowing what to say, how to say it, when to say it, really helps, because if you go into it blind and if you don't really have any sales experience, I think you'll lose out on a lot of deals and you might not even know why are you losing out on them. So today's going to be a great episode for a lot of people, help you convert more of the leads that you get into deals by being able to negotiate with sellers and make it something that works out for both of you so that you can get the deal and they can get their house sold. So let's go ahead and get into this, talk with John, and find out what kind of tactics, what kind of things that we can use to be able to make this happen a lot better for all of us. All right, hey John, thanks for being on the show.
Hey, good to be here. Good to be here.
Awesome. So I gave everybody a little bit of information about your background, what you do, but I wanted to get a little bit more from you if you want to share with the audience, with your background in investing and sales and everything. And
yeah, no problem. So I might not be exactly like the typical person you have on your show. Haven't been investing my whole life and really had no aim or desire to get into real estate, but I ended up there in a really big way. So I'm a sales trainer, been in sales all my life since I was a teen, started training teams, hiring salespeople, moved into the consulting world, started training sales teams for big and small companies really all over the country in all kinds of different industries. And a couple years ago, I was working for a call center that really catered to investors and real estate agents. They drove leads through landing pages across, websites all across the U.S. And an investor called in let me back up. They called an investor trying to sell some of their leads, and they called this guy all the time. And he said, "Man, something's changed. You're scripting. What's going on?" And they said, "Well, we're working with John, this trainer, and he rewrote our scripts." And he said, "Well, let me get a hold of him. I got to talk to him." So that's my entryway into real estate. I started working with that gentleman's team. He introduced me to others. Before I knew it, 6 months later, I'm working with probably 30, 40 different of the most elite real estate investment firms across the country. People like Good Success out of Indiana. They do 800, 900 deals a year. Express Home Buyers out in the D.C. area. They've got 90, 100 flips under rehab at any given time during the year. Yeah. So I was just kind of thrust into it, like I said, in a big way. So fast forward to today, our whole sales training is kind of shifted specifically towards real estate and investors and exactly what they do, the scripts, our approach, everything. And from that, I got into real estate investing myself. So we do some virtual wholesaling out in Houston, Texas. We've opened up the Springfield, Missouri market where I live. We do a little bit in St. Louis, bought a couple houses up there. So that's kind of where I came from and how I ended up here.
Awesome. And I met you through Justin, with the mastermind group.
Yeah.
And, what you've shared with that group and shared with all of us has just been incredible, and really appreciate that. And I'm hoping to get some of that info on this podcast for all the listeners out there.
Sure.
Because, like we said before the show, I think some people avoid working with motivated sellers because of the difficulty in negotiating. If you're buying a bank-owned house, you're just making an offer, and it's sort of, it's not very personal, right?
Yeah.
And so maybe you can share a little bit about, the process, how you train people to meet with sellers and kind of walk through that step by step.
Yeah, I'd love to. So, first thing first, what I like to talk about, or what I think you got to realize is flippers, wholesalers, investors in general, when they buy real estate and they buy at a low price, they're really providing a service. And so I think the first way to jump over that hurdle and to get over kind of that head trash of, this feels uncomfortable, I can't do this, to really know the value of your product. No matter what you bought a home for, you're going to feel bad about it unless you know the service you're providing. So, in a lot of our training, when we train people who are just brand new to this industry in call centers and things like that, or virtual assistants, for example, the first thing we do is we scour the internet and we pull testimonial after testimonial after testimonial of some of the amazing things real estate investors do, some of the problems they help their homeowners out of. At the end of the day, investors, when they buy these properties, they're providing a service that no one else in the world provides. And they do it in a very clean, very quick, very efficient way. And on top of that service, there's usually all kinds of extras thrown in, moving services and other problems they take care of. And they're literally lifesavers to a lot of people. So I think first thing first is understanding really the value of the service that we provide to the homeowner. It's extremely valuable. And to move at the speed we move and to do the things we do, sometimes that's expensive, right? When you get the best out of the best and they take care of problems no one else can take care of, and they do it quicker than anyone else could imagine taking care of it, that type of service is a little expensive. So I think step one is just realizing your value, right? No, nothing besides that.
Yeah, I agree. And
go ahead.
I hear a lot of people, when they say that, oh, well, don't you feel like you're taking advantage of people in bad situations? And it's always from somebody that's never talked to a real motivated seller, there's all the time, the testimonials that we get, the video testimonials, people want to give those to us because they're so thrilled with how easy we made it. And a lot of times the situations that they're facing and the repairs needed in the properties, there's just no other option for them. Mm-hmm. And, people like to think that there might be, but there's really not for a lot of these situations. And a lot of people just don't even care about, I shouldn't say don't care about, but they care more about an easy transaction than they do about what they're going to make on it. Mm-hmm. And until you've been in that position too, maybe you don't understand where that's coming from. But I've had rental properties that I've sold for way more than I could have got because I was just done with them. So I know what it feels like, and can relate to where those people are. And so it just fits right along with what you're saying.
I agree. I don't think we can decide what value to put on things for our customers. There's certain issues, problems, opportunities they want to take advantage of or get away from, and they put different values on it. And if their value matches up with what we can pay for their house, it's a win-win. And that's really, at the end of the day, what we're looking for is, hey, I'm just here to decide, to find out if there's some kind of win-win, right? Can I help you do whatever you're trying to do at a price that makes sense for my business? And if it's a yes, awesome. If it's a no, no sweat. We put our best foot forward and we gave it a shot. So that behind us, step one behind us, it is uncomfortable giving that low offer if you don't have the belief. But even if you do have the belief, it's still uncomfortable because we don't know how our prospect's going to respond. If you spit out no matter how much you believe, if you spit out a much lower number than they were expecting, then there's a little bit of some friction there. You might get a response that's very negative, right? They might call you names, tell you to leave their house. No one wants to do that, so that prevents us from even wanting to make that offer. So a couple quick tips there on how to do it without ever offending anyone, being able to make the right offer. So first quick tip is this: don't hide what you're feeling and who you are. So this goes back to, we do a lot of teaching on empathy in our sales training. And empathy, as we all know, basically means understanding how the other person feels, right? When you see someone who feels extremely sad, you feel a little bit of sadness in you. If you're speaking to someone and they just lost a loved one, right, you feel it a little bit. We can feel other people's emotions. We're hardwired for it. I just read another study last week on some MRI scans and different things and how they could actually measure it, and they see that the same parts of our brain, we actually feel the same things emotionally when we hear about other people having an emotional experience as when we do. So that's empathy. Long way to say we use that as a tool when we make offers. And here's how you do that. Here's how you use empathy as a tool when you make these offers. Just don't hide who you are. When you're getting ready to make an offer, if you're really uncomfortable about it, and truth being told, if you're doing this business right, your offer should be low enough that you are a little bit uncomfortable, right? Let it shine through. Hey, listen, based on what I've seen today, your property, based on the research I did, what other houses are actually selling for, what I think I could sell yours for, the work I need to put into it, all those types of things, I've kind of come up with a number that I think I can offer you for the house, but here's the thing. I think it's going to be much lower than what you're expecting, and I don't even know how to tell you what that number is. I got to tell you, I'm a little embarrassed. I'm a little reluctant. I don't want to do it. I'm afraid you might kick me out of your house if I tell you what it is. You get visibly uncomfortable. And what does that have to do with empathy? Well, they're going to start to feel for you. They say, okay, this guy over here, he's going to give me an offer. He's not comfortable with it. Probably means I'm not going to be comfortable with it. So you just prepped them, but instead of them getting mad as if you just blindsided them with it,
all right,
they start to actually console you. You'll start to hear them say things like, no, it's okay. Your offer is whatever your offer is. I know you've got a business to run, and they're going to start justifying it before you've even given that offer, and you've already prepped them that it's going to be a low offer. So that's how you slide into it. And then once you give that offer, what I've seen lots of times is, again, they'll start to console you. You go, well, I don't think I could give any more than $25,000. Then you just be quiet, and you'll hear your prospects say things like, well, if that's the best you can do, that's the best you can do. I know you've got to put some work into, and they're going to start justifying your offer. That's a complete 180 from what most investors do today. But it's extremely effective. It makes the prospect feel good, and it preps them for that low price. It lets you feel good because you can say what you actually feel and not have to put on this mask of machismo and just go after it. It's just the best way to handle it when we use empathy to make those offers, because they're going to be low, they're going to be uncomfortable. Use that to your advantage. So I'm hoping that helps somebody out there.
Oh yeah, I'm sure it will. And that's one thing that I think that we've always, in my team, has always tried to do is to go in and know that the first thing that we need to do is have empathy for them, like you said, so that they lower the guard and aren't like, who's this investor that supposedly has all this money, it's going to buy my house? He knows so much more about real estate than I do. I don't want to be taken advantage of. That's my biggest fear.
Yeah.
And so we just let people know we're normal people. It's got to work for both of us. We'll let you know what works for us. Hopefully it works for you. And just let them know it's not going to be some hard negotiation thing, where we're going to try to pound them and all this, all this kind of stuff. And
absolutely. Yeah, so, and the same concept works in renegotiation too. We've done quite a bit of work on renegotiations lately, and it's the empathy tactic has actually worked so well. We've now had a couple of investors who use a tactic and gotten back to us and said, we actually bought the house for less than what we wanted to renegotiate our offer for, because they'd go back in and same thing. Hey, listen, my fault, 100%. We missed this. We didn't see this. We had someone come in and uncover this. Long story short, I can't buy your house because there's no way I can pay this amount that we agreed on, and I feel absolutely terrible about it. And now on 2 occasions after they've said that, they do feel terrible, because no one wants to go back and tell someone they can't honor the initial offer, right? It feels bad, but they simply let it show. And that second that they took to pause and just let it sink in, they got counter offers that were lower than what they wanted to renegotiate for. One instance, I think the gentleman wanted 65 or so, and before he even got the words out of his mouth, he said, I can't do it because, I can't buy it. And the prospect said, listen, could you take 60? Yeah.
Nice.
Right. 5K less than what he needed to get it to.
Right.
So I wouldn't take the power of empathy lightly. It's extremely powerful in negotiating and renegotiating situations.
Now, the renegotiating, was that more for, sort of wholesalers maybe where they're saying, I'm going to try to get this price for it or whatever, and you've got to renegotiate because you couldn't find a buyer. It's just too much. You can't make it work. I can think of another situation I had actually where I was going to buy the house to fix up and sell. And the people, I'm pretty sure over the phone or something, they had told me it was a 3-bedroom, 2-bath.
Yeah.
I walked through it. I made my offer. They accepted. We got a contract. And that evening I was sitting there, and for some reason I was playing back, walking through the house in my mind. And it dawned on me, there was only 2 bedrooms. And so I said, oh my gosh, what have I done? I made this offer based on the ARV of a house that has 3 bedrooms. So I ran comps real quick and said, well, that really stinks. And I called them up and I said, look, I made this mistake in doing just exactly what you said. Just say, I made a mistake. I'm being honest. The value's not what I thought it was. Is there any way we can work this out and try to... And so they came down several thousand and made it work. But, that made all the difference, just calling and admitting my mistake and going that route. But so that was tip number 1, is the empathy. Did you... is there more in that list?
Yeah, so beyond that, we want to take advantage of something we call price anchoring in any negotiation, any negotiating situation. So a price anchor is simply this. As humans, we judge the value of something. We judge how big or small it is, heavy or light it is, good or bad it is. We judge things based on what we have to compare it to. So let me explain that just a little bit deeper. If you walk into my wife, she does the shopping for our family, right? I'm a terrible shopper. And if she goes into a department store and she finds, a shirt like the one I'm wearing, and it has a tag on it that says $199 marked down to $39.99, she's going to be ecstatic. Not because the shirt's $39.99, but compared to $199, right? That's a heck of a deal. That's a freaking steal. Mm-hmm. That's what a price anchor is, right? If it just said this shirt was $39, she'd say, take it or leave it, right? Mm-hmm. So we judge the value of this shirt. She judges based on what she has to compare it to. So that's similar to a price anchor. So the way it relates to real estate is before you give your final offer, you never want to lead with your best and final. You want to kind of reset what your prospect has in mind that they're going to compare your offer to. Now, if you haven't talked any numbers or pricing at all, and you've got a prospect who, let's say, they're expecting about an offer of $100,000, or they think their house is worth $100,000, or their neighbor sold their house for $100,000, anything that you come into below that is going to feel like much lower than it actually is. So if we don't reset that price anchor, it's going to seem even worse than what it is, right? So how do you reset a price anchor? How do you reset a price anchor without even really making an offer? Very simple. With one line, with something as simple as, we bought houses similar, or we bought houses in this area before, or I saw some houses as I did my research that were sold in the last year in this area. And I saw some that sold for as low as $25K. Can you believe that? Something as simple as that just took that $100,000 price anchor and moved it all the way down to 25. So anything that comes after it is going to be valued, judged, compared to that 25 instead of the 100. So when you reset a price anchor to 25, and they're thinking, oh, geez, is he about to offer me 25? I didn't even know they sold in this area for that much. And you come in with 50 to 60, all of a sudden that seems a lot sweeter than if they're expecting 100 and you come in at 60. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, I like that. Yeah, and especially if you've got some comps that you bring with you to even show, this property here at this address sold for this amount.
Absolutely.
Wow, that's nice. I like that.
Yeah. So that's one reason why bringing comps works so effectively, because you reset those expectations and they judge your offer on those expectations. So yeah, price anchor, use it. You have to, no matter what, or else, it's going to be used against you. If your prospect's number is higher, you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot there. Absolutely.
And so you would say even if they don't give you their number, if they don't have an idea of what they want to sell it for, to come in with something like that because they do have something in their mind maybe they're not willing to share with you.
Yeah, they always have something in their mind. We all do. Sometimes just the fear of being taken advantage of and things like that, we don't share, right? Well, I've got a number in mind, but what if I say it and it's lower than they were going to give me, right? That type of thing. So we keep our cards kind of close to our chest until we feel completely comfortable and safe. No one wants to be the first one to throw out an offer. So whether they say it or not, reset that price anchor. It's almost more important if they don't say something because you have no idea what you're working with.
Right. Do you advise, in the initial contact and maybe whenever you're talking to them on the phone before the appointment, to have anything that you do set the price anchoring at that time, or would you advise maybe waiting till the in-person meeting?
Right. I kind of look at it, a great question, by the way. I kind of look at it in stages. So when you're on the phone, sales goes in stages. When you're on the phone, you're having an initial conversation. You don't really want to close a deal right then. You have to think about what's your real goal. And on an initial phone call, your real goal is, hey, I want to get to the next step, whatever that next step is for my company, right? That might be another phone consultation. That might mean me or someone else goes on site and visits. It could mean all kinds of things. But you got to keep in mind what's my goal. And in an initial phone call, the goal is to get them to the next step in the process. So if that's going to kill it, if you're going to kill it before you even have a chance to find out what their real problem is, how you can help them, you've really done yourself and them an injustice. One step at a time. Step number one is always, how can I possibly help you? Is there some way me and my company are uniquely situated to handle whatever it is you want? And for me to find that out, I got to figure out what's your situation, what do you want? And if we both agree, I might just be able to help you out of that mess. Step two is, let's start looking at numbers and what all this deal would look like.
Right. No, great point. And I was laughing about the example with the wife and the shirt.
Yeah.
Because just last night I was showing my wife it was some training that I was looking at.
Yeah.
And the marketer, his marketing tech was pretty ingenious, and he's, so $3,000 worth of training, and tonight it's 90% off. Tomorrow it'll go up in price, and the next day after that go up even more. And so even consider, it kind of makes you not even think anymore about whether that's really worth the $3,000. You're just looking at like, man, look at the difference in savings, because he's framed it as being worth that much.
Yeah. So the first number you get, that 3,000, we just kind of by default give something that value. It's okay. That's a $3,000 value. And all it takes is, he didn't even have to say anyone's ever purchased this for $3,000. Just
right.
Hey, retail value is $3,000. That number's in our head. So now anything that comes in below 90% off, that's a freaking steal. What's that, $300?
Right.
No brainer compared to $3,000.
And I bought it.
Powerful. Yeah, that's how powerful a price anchor is, because it's almost too good of a deal to pass up, right?
Right.
It's a powerful concept, and you see it every day in life. If in car sales, before they nickel and dime you to death with the different add-ons and insurances and things like that, what do? You decide on the base price of the car, because anything compared to that, whether you're talking about $25,000 to $50,000 for the initial price tag, or a car payment of $200, $300, $400, $500, $600, $700 a month, once that number's figured out, and they start talking about $24 a month for this and $99 for this, those numbers seem minuscule. So they never start out talking about those small numbers. It's the big ones first, and then by comparison, that seems like chump change. You'll start to see that concept everywhere you look once you're aware of it.
Yeah, it's super powerful. I guess you could even, sort of frame yourself and your company, right? With statements about Better Business Bureau and things like that, to where, if you make those statements and your competitor doesn't, maybe going into the meeting, they have this idea of you versus them as being more professional, right?
Absolutely.
If
Absolutely.
You built more rapport or something on the phone before you went there, maybe they're slanted towards you in favor of you. They like you more, kind of.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Absolutely.
All right, so we have the empathy, then we have price anchoring, and what else do you have?
So for negotiating, just a couple of quick tips I'll toss out there. So one of the questions I often get is how do we tell homeowners that, hey, there's no more money left in the negotiation, right? We've hit our top. So what we usually teach is not to even tell them when you've reached the top, you reach the end, or there's no need to even start the conversation with, hey, we're doing our best offer, so there's no wiggle room. What you can do is the way you make your offers and negotiate, if it's a back and forth, you can do it in such a way where they figure out you've reached the end on their own. So here's some examples. Let's say your maximum allowable offer is $100,000, right? Nice round number. And you're going to start the negotiation low to see, set the price anchor number one and see where it goes. So maybe you start at 50 or 60K. As it goes back and forth, what you want to do to signal when you're reaching close to your maximum is make those increments you increase smaller and smaller, right? Absolutely. So you might start with 60, go to 75, go to 80, 82, right? I'm kind of expanding it out, but that's the point. That's going to signal subconsciously that, hey, they're getting closer to the top because they're inching up at this point. When you really want to make it stick and you get to the end, whether it's 2 offers in or 5, whatever it is, him and haw about it a little bit, do a lot of deep thinking. I take out my notes, I start doing some serious math, and I come up with an offer, and your final offer needs to be a very odd number. When the increments shrink and shrink and shrink, and then you end up with $84,372.19, it'll stop your prospect in their tracks. They finally go, okay, this is it, right? It's not 80, 90, it's to the penny. This company, this individual, there's nothing left in it. They're maxed out. And there's obviously some thought and reason behind this number. So smaller increments end up with an odd number. And if they still push after that for something more, finally, and give them a non-financial concession, right? So I don't have a penny more, but I'll clean out that garage for you, or anything you leave behind, we can take care of that. Those are all signals to your prospect that we've reached the end, and you never have to say, that's my max. They'll know it, and they won't push any harder. But just like we all do in negotiations, if we don't use tactics like that, then they're going to always think, well, I got the last 10,000 out of them. Why not push for 10,000 more?
Right.
And oftentimes that they don't know when you're for real and when you're not for real. So they might think, okay, now you hit your max, and they go, well, he's just playing hardball, so I'll let him walk out the door and he'll call me in 3 hours. Sometimes that's the max, and that never happens, and you've lost that deal. So signaling to your prospect when you've reached the end through that negotiating tactic is a powerful way to make sure they know when you've really reached the top, whatever that top is, whether it is your maximum allowable or below it, you decide that. But that's a signal where they say they give up. They say, okay, this is it, and they'll accept that as your final offer.
Yeah, I like that. And a lot of times with my team, and let me know what you think about this, because it's just what we've been using, but maybe you've got some advice on it. But so let's say we need to buy something for $50,000. We need to buy the house for $50,000. They're asking, let's say, $80,000. So we're 30 grand off. And so we come in with an offer of 41. We usually start our first offer as an odd offer to make it seem really calculated to the penny kind of thing.
Right.
So we say like 41,000 is what we can pay for your house. Well, they say, I wanted 80. I really do want 80, and they stay at 80.
Yeah.
And so we want the house pretty bad, which is never good in negotiation, right? But let's just say that we do, because typically you want a good deal.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, so I tell my guys, we'll go up 1,000. Like go up just $1,000. Like we've got $9,000 of room here. Yeah. But I only want to go up 1,000 because we're so far off. They need to show that they're willing to come down quite a bit. Otherwise, we're never going to meet in the middle anyway.
Right.
So don't give up a whole bunch right off the bat when they didn't budge, because they're just going to stay not budging because you're bumping up big time.
Yeah.
And then so 1,000. If they come down maybe to 70,000, then it's maybe go up just $500. Yeah. So they know we've already sort of, like you said, smaller increments.
Exact same tactic, right? It's the numbers and the examples we gave were a little different, but it's the exact same, right? You're inching up lower by little, and I think that's exactly what you got to do. I think it's spot on.
Yeah. And do you remember, because I always have my guys, only come up maybe 1,000 or 2,000 as our biggest concession. I guess it depends on maybe the numbers of the deals. If you have a market where the houses are 300,000, maybe you're going to come up more or something like that. But
yeah, I mean, you could do it different ways. I know a lot of investors that start really low because every now and then someone just says, okay, and they go, wow, I didn't expect them to sell for that low, but if they're willing to and it's a win-win, I'll buy it, right? It makes sense. The danger of starting that low is if you make big jumps, what's the danger? That people might think, wow, are you trying to take advantage of me? Why were you so low and now you're jumping up so high?
Right.
So the investors who use that tactic that we work with usually start off by throwing out that small number without really making an offer. So just rephrasing the way they offered a little bit, just walk to the house, they put their numbers together, and they might say something like, and some of them even do this over the phone. So, I don't know yet. I'm still trying to put my head around this thing. What would you say to me if I said I'd cut you a check for $40,000 for it? So they're not really making the offer, but they're kind of testing those waters. And that's another way they use to set that price anchor. So sometimes they're like, you're out of your mind. And he's like, that's what I thought you'd say. The offer really wasn't made, right? And then other times they go, well, yeah, you got my attention. And they go, my gosh, now we know, we were about to leave money on the table if we started, 10 or 20 grand higher. So it really depends on your personality and what you want. You can start really close to your maximum allowable and inch up. You can test the waters and go lower. There's just a little bit more risk there because it depends on the seller's perception. But even then, there's ways to phrase things and test things out without actually making an offer. It's really just you're watching for their reaction as you throw different numbers out there.
Yeah, that's a good idea. That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, what I like to do is I'll start a lot lower if the deal is one that requires a lot more work and effort. If the house is like a burned property or something. I mean, something where we're going to be doing a lot to get this thing back up.
Yeah.
It's just how bad you want the deal, I guess. But I've always had a thing for whenever, especially when we're selling properties and somebody makes us an offer that we really like and we just want to accept it. Maybe we've had it on the market a while or something. But I've always... try to make it to where it's just where we counter because we don't want them to feel like they offered too much.
Everyone wants to feel like they got a good deal. And everyone wants to haggle a little bit because if you have that little bit of fight in you, right, the little bit of haggle, then you feel like, all right, we got the better of this person. We made sure we got the best deal. So, yeah, at the end of the day, you want anyone, whether they're buying or selling, you want people to walk away feeling like they got a good deal, right? And if you accept too quick, unfortunately, even though logically, hey, it just made sense, let's accept, let's not beat around the bush, on the emotional level, that triggers someone to say, did I go in too high? Did I go in too low? Am I getting the best deal? And they start to rethink, and that could manifest itself down the line into problems with the closing of the property, and all. It could come out to come show its face again in all kinds of situations down the line that makes the transaction difficult. If a prospect doesn't feel like they got a good deal or they start to worry about them being taken advantage of. Even if it doesn't make the deal blow up, it can make things complicated. So we always want to make sure they feel like they're getting a good deal no matter what. So I agree with you 100%. Push back just a little bit.
Yeah.
Even if it's as simple as, are you sure that's the best you can do? As simple as that. You need to.
Yeah, because as soon as they see that you're super thrilled about it, they're thinking, man, I lost this,
Did I make a mistake? Yeah.
Yeah, and
absolutely.
If you're selling and they're buying and then they, at that point after they get that inspection report, it's like, I want everything done. Because I'm paying too much or something. But
that's exactly right.
Let's talk about some objections. Let's cover some objections. So whenever you are talking with a seller and... what are some typical ones you guys cover in your training?
Well,
how to handle some of the objections?
Yeah. Great question, and I'll answer this the best I can because I think our view is a little different than probably what a lot of people are used to hearing when it comes to objections. You see, the way we structure our sales process is we already know all the objections that are going to come up, and we want to pull them out of our prospects and deal with them before we get to the close. So most sales training out there, most stuff you read is all going to say, when they say this, you say that. When they say this, you say that. And here's the truth of the matter. Usually at that point, it's too late, right? You've made an offer, you've lost leverage. It's just a really difficult situation to be in. And truth be told, if we all had those magic bullets, if those things all really worked, no company, no business, no individual salesperson would need sales process at all. Because you just wait and you'd say, I want to buy, and they'd say no, and you'd say, what's your objection? And they'd spit it out at you, and you'd give them the magic bullet, done deal. Here's reality. Objections and concerns are usually tightly held and not shared by prospects because they're afraid they're going to get taken advantage of, like we've already talked to, afraid they won't get the best deal, right? Things like that. There's all kinds of reasons why. So we want to pull those things out while we still have the leverage to do so. So what gives a salesperson leverage to ask those questions and get those answers? Ask about what's going to possibly get in the way and kill this deal, and get those answers so we can deal with them. Our leverage is our offer, our presentation, what we're going to actually do for them. So we want to get to objections before we get to our offer. After we give them our offer, they say, hey, I've got everything I need from you. There's no need for me to answer any more of your questions. You can call an email. I don't need anything from you, so I'm probably going to just let it pass unless I decide I want to talk to you. So the way any good sales process is structured is going to be to do two things. Number one, pull out all the reasons why they would do business with you, right? What's your motivation? What's your real motivation? Not to sell a house, but what the heck is going on, right? Repairs. Okay, what does that mean? How's that impacting you? What do you mean repairs? Tell me about that. How long has that been going on? And you want to get the real why out, and it'll get emotional. It always does when you get a real why. Anyone who's been in this business will see when the real why comes out and they really start talking about how this property is impacting them or the things this property is keeping them from or impacting loved ones, that gets real, right? It gets emotional. And once we understand that why, and sometimes they're in touch with that why for the first time themselves, they've just never thought about it, they've avoided even thinking about it. But once it's out there, then we start pulling out, listen, I know you want to get rid of this house. It's not the easiest thing to do, right? It's risky. You don't know my company, what we do. You might not know where you're going to go. You start pulling out everything. Well, who else is going to help you make this decision? Would anyone be upset if you made this decision and you didn't tell him what you were doing? Yeah, my dad. Well, what would he say? What's his concerns? What does he consider a good deal? You start pulling out all those objections. And after you pull out every one, the way you overcome them, well, here's the secret. Salespeople can't overcome anyone's objections. And I'm a sales trainer telling you, a salesperson cannot overcome an objection. Only that seller, only that prospect can overcome their own objection. We just have to help them through it. So the real question is not how do we overcome our prospects' objections, it's how do we help them overcome their objections. And you do that by questions. You simply compare it to that first step in the sales process. What's your why? Well, if I sell the house, my sister's a realtor, she's going to get mad at me. Okay, that's an objection. Your question should be, well, you mentioned you're tired of this, the stress, the pain. Because of it, you can't do this. You're feeling this way. The real question is it more important to solve that or keep your sister happy? And I'm not here to tell you one way is better than the other, but that's the real question.
Yeah, make a decision. Yeah.
Right. You clarify it for them. They go, no, she's mad at me all the time anyways. I got to get past this. Bang, they just overcame their own objection. So the real trick is finding out their why, pulling out every possible objection, and then comparing the objection to their why and which one's more important. At the end of the day, what you'll see is their why usually trumps every possible objection. They seem minuscule, right? And you just walk them through that. And once all the objections are out of the way, that's when you get to solving their problem, right? So a little different than most people will tell you. It's a slightly different approach, but in our experience, that's the most effective approach.
Yeah, nice. I like that. And that really does cover everything. Yeah, and it's awesome that you didn't just have 3 to 5 things like, usually they'll tell you this, and here's what you say. And then you're saying that at the wrong time, and it's just weird and awkward, and nobody really knows what's going on. But Yeah, so no, that's awesome. That really one size fits all. And it really is just about them overcoming their own objections. It's right. And so asking questions, I like the questions thing. But this is awesome. And you sent over to me 5 stages of sales mastery and a seller script. Do you want to talk about what those have in them?
Sure. So 5 stages of sales mastery. So, especially getting into this business, real estate, one thing I hear from tons of people because of what I do is I love the real estate part. I don't want to talk to people. I don't want to sell stuff. I don't want to be that guy, right? And big piece of that is because it's uncomfortable and I'm not good at it. And the thing is, whenever you start anything new, right, before you master it, there's certain stages. So the 5 stages of mastery is just a simple, it kind of tells you where you are. So, at first you're not going to know what you're doing. You're not going to feel in control. That 5 stages of mastery is to tell you, you're starting, that's stage 1, that's normal. Feel okay about it. Next stage, here's what you can expect. Next stage, here's what you can expect. And it will tell you what you should be feeling, what you are feeling, and you'll know how close you're getting to mastery, right? So mastery is when you totally feel in control, you enjoy yourself, you start having fun, you've got all the tools and techniques, anytime you need them you can pull out, and it's kind of funny. Once you hit that point, every sales scenario becomes a lot of fun. You meet people, you have real conversations, and you just use some tools to kind of guide the conversation, get people back on track, and they're just tools of the trade. And you have a really good time. So that's about where you start, where you end up, what you experience in between. And more than anything else, it's just to say, if you're not feeling okay, that's okay. You're on the road to mastery. Here, we already know it. These are the things you're supposed to feel. You're supposed to be uncomfortable about this here, uncomfortable about this here, and here's what you can expect. And when people know that what I'm feeling now, this kind of bad feeling, is where I'm supposed to be, and that I'm on track and progressing, it makes people, it makes it a lot easier to go on that journey towards mastery and to learn, knowing that you're on track at least.
Right.
The seller script is a script we've developed over time with different investors, and that version is kind of a universal version. So we're actually building an REI call center right now. It's a call center where I've done all the training, and it's the first call center we know of that's 100% dedicated to the real estate investor. So we're going to do inbound calls, start doing outbound calls, all that stuff. I personally trained everyone on the call center floor many hours. And I'm in charge of the quality and all that stuff. But that script we've developed for them as a universal script. So it's built to work for any investor anywhere in the country, really to take your seller quickly and efficiently through some questions to get some basic condition of the house, and really do 3 things, right? Whenever we're on the phone, we're qualifying, right? Do I want to take my time to move this person to the next step? So we cover motivation, equity, and time frame, and that's it. And some pretty simple ways to get that information without pushing your prospect too hard, and learning whatever you need to learn so you can decide, do I want to take a next step or not? So nice. Seller script and the road to mastery are the 2 things I believe I left you with. Right.
Yeah, and then a video. You also sent over a video about renegotiation training.
Yeah. So that
awesome.
video, just short video. I got that question a lot in this last few weeks. I just sat down for a few minutes, hit record on the computer, and went over some best practices on exactly how to renegotiate. So short video, maybe 5 or 10 minutes.
Awesome. Well, I like these, and I've read through these documents, and I'll put these up on the show notes page, which will be at flippingjunkie.com/61. flippingjunkie.com/61. You'll be able to go and download these, the video, and then the seller script and the 5 stages of sales mastery. And I really think that these are some of the best things that we've offered from a show, so I think you ought to go there and check it out. So flippingjunkie.com/61. Go ahead and download those for free. And John, do you have anything else you want to share?
No, thanks for having me on. If anyone wants any information about our company, it's at midwestrev.com.
Awesome. And is that the best way to reach you? Do you have any other ways to reach you? You just want people go there as best? You
can check out the website. There's some real estate information, but anyone's always free to email me directly. John at midwestrev.com. So it's JOHN at midwestrev.com. I answer all my own emails. I know it's a rarity nowadays with autoresponders and all that stuff, but I do take pride in getting back to everyone individually.
Yeah, and John's quick. I talked to him this morning about being on the show, and next thing I know, we're scheduling just a couple hours later to do the show, so it's awesome. He really does respond fast, and he's a great guy. We've learned a lot from you, and appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, have a great day, John, and I'll also have a link to your website on the show notes page, so if people missed that or weren't able to write that down, that'll be there so that people will be able to find you. And
awesome.
Great. So have a great day, John. Appreciate it.
You too. Bye-bye.
All right, another great episode. Thank you so much for listening to the Flipping Junkie podcast. I know there's a lot of other podcasts out there. Appreciate you listening to ours at Flipping Junkie. And thanks again to John for sharing all that hard-earned sales information. And, really knows his stuff. And I like his approach because it really does mirror what we've been doing and what we found to work really well. And it's really nice to know, like what he said, if you go to the show notes page at flippingjunkie.com/61, flippingjunkie.com/61, to the show notes page, you can download that 5 stages of sales mastery document along with the seller script and the renegotiation video. But that stages of sales mastery where he talked about the different levels of, mastering sales and, starting with reluctance and frustration, but then, how he described mastery as being comfortable there, talking with them, realizing that it's you and them, the sellers, and you're trying to find a way to help them. You're trying to find out what they really want, the real reason why they're selling, and how you can help them with their situation so that they can move on with their life. And when you are a master at this, that will feel great because being a master is not coming, at sales in this situation is not coming in there and, strong-arming them or having shady tactics or, trying to maneuver and all this kind of stuff to be able to get the house for as cheap as you want. I don't know that there's a whole lot of people that really want to be that way, so it's good that it's really just, being comfortable with going there and talking with people and being empathetic and trying to help them. And I think that's awesome that describes being a master at the sales when working with sellers and trying to help them with their situations. But go ahead and go to flippingjunkie.com/61. You can download those documents and the renegotiation video. Thanks again, John. And if you would, on iTunes, please leave a rating and review. Really appreciate that. All right, enjoy your week, and we'll be back on the podcast next week.